Okay, so we're going to make the brioche dough ready for the Pandoro Italian Christmas cake. And we're using strong flour. We're going to make this directly on the work surface, which is a fun way to make it. So strong flour through a sieve onto the work surface. We're going to add our salt and also the sugar. So this is a very rich, slightly sweet bread, and it's enriched with a good quantity of eggs. So no water at all, just completely hydrated with eggs, so nice and rich. And also about as much butter as a pastry, so it's a very rich bread indeed. So we're going to sieve this straight down here. And then you want to make a nice big well in the centre. We're going to sprinkle over the fresh yeast. Okay, so this is the best type of yeast really that you can use. So it's a commercial grade yeast. You can tell it's fresh because it's not at all sweaty or dry. It's nice and soft. Sprinkle it over like this, and then add all of the egg. Okay, so beaten egg. And then it's a case of, I like to add a little bit of the flour to start with, and then quite bravely take a sort of forked hand and just start to mix everything together. So the dough scraper is really useful for this. So it'll be really quite wet and quite sticky, and that's perfectly okay. So we'll just bring it into a dough in just a sec. And because of the egg, there's a lovely colour to this, really, really rich, nice yellow colour. So we're going to do a no flour knead with this. So we're going to literally just aggravate the gluten, get it nice and stretchy, nice and springy. It looks pretty messy, but it's a really good way to aggravate the gluten. What happens with the gluten itself is it tends to swell and it will absorb the liquid. So it's tempting to add flour, but we're not going to. So continue to use the scraper. So it's definitely becoming more elastic. all of the lumps are going. So you can, of course, make this in a freestanding mixer, a little bit less messy, but if you haven't made it before, it's worthwhile making it by hand to start with, just to get a sense of the consistency. Okay, so the dough is at a stage now where it's really nice and elastic. And so it's time to enrich this with the butter. And you can just literally put the butter on top like this. And we're going to work it in the same way. So this is where you'll see a bit of a colour change. It's going to go nice and glossy. So you certainly can do this with a freestanding mixer if you want to, but as I say, it's a nice thing to try, get a real sense of the consistency of this. So once the butter's worked in, it will be really nice and smooth and shiny. Okay, so once the butter's incorporated into a fresh bowl, and it'll be about 45 minutes to an hour for it to prove. It's really important you prove the brioche before it's refrigerated. Otherwise the butter will set and it will prevent it from rising up. So a clean cloth over the top and into a warm place. So we're at the stage now where the brioche has proved and it's been chilling overnight. We're going to come back to that in just a sec. The first thing to do now is to preheat the oven, 190 degrees, and then we can start to prepare the 8-pointed star tin. This is the Italian Christmas cake tin. The best way to do this is with soft butter and a brush rather than melted butter. Melted butter tends to sink down to the bottom of the tin and you end up with puddles in the bottom. So just quite carefully and evenly brush all of the sides. The attractiveness of this is the tin, but you do need to be careful to make sure that you coat every surface of the tin. Otherwise you'll be presenting this in the tin rather than turning it out. And then what we're going to do is we're going to dust this with some cocoa powder to fully protect it from the brioche itself. So you could have this done in advance. Actually, you could have this with the cocoa powder on top sitting in the fridge, ready to go. As I say, it takes a little bit of time just to get down to all of the nooks and crannies here, right into the bottom as well. And once you've done it, it's just a case of sprinkling or dusting all of the surfaces with the cocoa powder for the brioche. So the brioche has risen here. It's been in the fridge also overnight. So because of the butter content, it has to be completely cool in order to shape. So we're going to knock it back, and this is the stage where you can add really whatever you want. Today we're going to add some chocolate pieces. So quite a good amount of chocolate. Put some flour down on the table. So as I say, it needs to be completely cold in order to handle because of the quantity of butter. And then what we're going to do is we're going to work in the chocolate. And just give it a light knead. So this will distribute the chocolate throughout the dough. If you need to, just flour your hands rather than continuing to flour the dough itself. And then what we're going to do is just shape it into a nice, neat round and then drop it into the Pandoro tin, ready for proving. And it's going to take quite a lot of proving, so we want it to be fully puffed up and risen before it goes into that nice hot oven. So one last bit of flour. Straight into the tin. Okay, so with the brioche in the tin, we just want to accelerate the proving. So we're going to add some hot water. Not too hot because it's in a metal tin on a metal tray, so it's going to conduct the heat pretty well. And there's a lot of butter in that dough, but enough just to increase the temperature and just to accelerate the proving. So we're looking for this to puff up, just slightly breach the top of the tin. And it might take about 45 minutes to an hour. So cover it with a clean tea towel and leave that until it's ready. Okay, so we're at the stage now where the brioche has come just up to the top of the tin and it's going to go into the oven 25 to 30 minutes at 190. It will just prove a little bit more in the oven before the oven sets the bread, and then we'll cook it through 25 to 30 minutes. Okay, so the brioche is out of the oven. It's had 30 minutes, and it's a good idea now to take it out of the tin after about 5 minutes of just sitting so that it's not too hot. If it's piping hot, you may find it's a little bit fragile, but just give it about 5 minutes and then you can tip it out. Okay, and then cool it down before decorating with icing sugar and a few little extra garnishes. Okay, so you can see the cocoa on the sides and a really nice shape. It's very similar to a panettone, but it has less sort of crystallized fruits and things running through. So this version, our version, is with a chocolate brioche. We've got the cocoa on the outside, which is really attractive, and let's just cut it through. So you've got a nice crust on this. And you can see inside, you've got the lovely marbling of chocolate. So let's have a quick taste of this. So brioche, of course, is a really nice breakfast bread, but it's quite versatile as well. This Italian Christmas cake would be, say, had with a glass of Presecco or perhaps even an espresso, something like that. Let's have a quick taste. So we've got a lovely light open texture. Brioche is famed, isn't it, for its fluffy, light and rich texture.